Okay, everyone, welcome to another episode of Pros Pro Bono Meets the Clients. And today it's a great pleasure to welcome Clément Debosc, who is in France and who works for an organization called Ma Petite Planète. Luckily for us, Clément speaks perfect English. And so, welcome to the show, Clément.
Thank you, Andrew. Very happy to be here.
Okay, now we're going to begin by talking a little bit about the work you do with Ma Petite Planète. What is the problem that you set out to solve, and why did you choose this model of gamification of environmental challenges? Tell us a little bit about the backstory.
Yeah, with pleasure. So actually, it's kind of a personal problem I tried to solve through Ma Petite Planète. It was kind of hard for me to talk about ecology with my family and my friends like 4 to 5 years ago because it could be seen as really restrictive approach and moralizing people. This does not really work, and so I wanted to try another approach which was really about to give people the will and the motivation to act rather than saying them they have to act, but I'd rather the initiative comes from them directly. So I imagined a way that people motivate themselves together through a league conversation and a first list of ecological challenges. So at first it was only about 20 to 30 challenges. Now we have a database of about 400 eco challenges um, with many thematics like food, waste, mobility, biodiversity, energy, etc. And so we use gamification because it has been proven that people really react to gamification. And that's why now it's like a big competition, a big challenge, international challenge about ecology. And our mission is to raise awareness and get as many people as possible to act for the planet preservation. And we have like European ambition. And thanks to you, the game is already translated in many languages.
Okay, so when you mention a particular challenge, like a waste challenge, can you give me an idea of how that works? What are the steps that people have to do? And do they do it alone, or do they do it with a family, or with a school class, or with colleagues?
Exactly. It can be played with many different kind of groups. So first we start with general public, so people playing with their family, with their friends, and then it really interested companies, public institutions, universities. So now we have groups also in that kind of institutions, and that's the business model of the NGO is partly, I would say. Accompanying those kind of structure into the implementation of the team building behind Ma Petite Planète. It also can be played at school, and actually the main impact in terms of players nowadays is at school. So we've just launched an edition. We are pretty excited. We have like 75,000 pupils, students playing live now, mostly in France, but also in other parts of Europe. And it brought the number of players of the NGO to 420,000 person. So mostly in Europe, and we aim to have millions of players in a few years, hopefully.
Okay, that's very interesting. What's your position on the amount that individual people can do compared to certain countries in the world or industries which are polluting very quickly? Sometimes people get a little bit pessimistic maybe about what I can do if I sort my rubbish compared to the massive industrial problems.
The change will come only if citizens move themselves in a way they incentivize companies, governments to do so. It's really a game of, um, I mean, there is something called the triangle of inaction. You have governments, you have citizens, and you have companies. And and currently what's happening is that every part is like taking the other part responsible for the inaction. And our mission and vision at MPP is to get this triangle of inaction into a virtuous circle of action in which companies like motivate citizens by making new products, etc., in a more eco-sustainable way. Citizens getting, I would say, activists in direction of the government so that the laws are better, and so that the laws are better for the companies to be more, I would say, restrictive in terms of what you can do and what you cannot do in terms of ecological laws, I would say. So it's necessary. It will come from the citizens, and that's our main focus. But it will not be sufficient, and we need also the other two parts to get moved. And there is a study which says 25% of what could be achieved is in the end of the citizen, and the rest is companies and the state. So the most part, so there's two things. The most part is state and companies, but citizens are totally essential to show the way, I would say. And secondly, and it's very important for us, westernized people are way more responsible for the ecological crisis than, I would say, other part of the world. And like the richer you are, the more things you consume, and I would say you have a bigger ecological footprint. So that's why we also focus on westernized countries like Europe. Later we will probably go to the United States, maybe Middle East, because people have high income there and high, I would say, consumption, and therefore pollution, etc.
Okay. So would you say, in a sense, that these challenges are, okay, they're an end in themselves because every challenge is a good thing, but also it's a way of raising people's consciousness about the environment and making them feel more responsible, more active, so that they can play that citizen role?
Yeah, there is a big thing about not being alone in that ecological crisis, and we want to get people together and motivated together. That's what that's why we create editions in which we welcome many players in the same time. And it's like it's big competition and big challenge all over the world in the same time, so that people, they have a global ranking and they know where in the global ranking they are located. Because if you play only you and your friends, you say, okay, this does not have much impact. But now we have hundreds of thousands of players, and people start to realize the interest of being a global movement in ecology.
That's a very clear vision of what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit now about your work with us and the translation? Because it's interesting. I only thought about this today when I prepared for this interview, that Ma Petite Planète were our first client. When we began in 2022, we had 0 clients and very few volunteers. And the volunteers who came along were saying, what can we do? And your association was one of the first, no, actually the first, to come to us. So that got us off the ground. So we owe you a debt of gratitude for having helped us get the ball rolling.
Yeah, I think we also owe you a debt. That's my opinion. But so what happened is that we started to look for translators, volunteers, like 2 to 3 years ago, because we started to have international players first on the adult version of the game, like. And after this, we also had teachers abroad who wanted the game to be translated for their own students. So we needed to translate. So we started obviously with English. We had in our team, we could handle English maybe, but it was not perfect, but we could handle it. And we also had I would say, needs in German, in Spanish, and in Italian. And on those 3 languages, it was difficult for us. We didn't have the right contacts and the right skills in our team to get the game translated in a proper way. So that's what we actually had one volunteer who told us about your organization, and actually it led us to work. I asked the person who is in lead with translator in Ma Petite Planète, like more than 25 person working for us since we started, 25 different person on 3 to 4 languages, like European languages, and really helped us to, I would say, save a lot of time, because translating is time consuming, and also I would say have a quality of translation which enable us to be, I would say, properly considered by international people when we talk about ecology and when we explain ecology to I would say abroad. So, and in terms of, sometimes we had like companies or public institution abroad who are very careful to how it's written, how it's explained, and so it helps us to have a good level of of quality of what we do, and therefore it enables us to have more impact, I would say, because people feel, I would say, the game is legit in other language, in other countries, so that we can now we have a plan to scale and to go abroad like in the next years, and we have a European vision, so we will not stop at France, right? I welcome anyone who watch this to play at Ma Petite Planète with people of his family, of his friend, maybe his companies, or if you know any teachers at school from kindergarten to high school, you can offer them to take part of the game. It's free. It's in the mission of the NGOs. We welcome everyone in this ecological transition because we need to mobilize massively on this.
Fantastic. Well, we put a link to your website
Great.
in this video. So thanks very much, Clément,
Thanks,
and
Hugo.
thanks for your time today.